Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to unpack complex ideas and find those really surprising insights.
And today, we're looking at a fascinating Osho speech. It's called Osho Life-Changing Speech Friendship.
Our goal is to pull out the wisdom here about happiness, about the self, and how we're all connected.
Exactly. We want to understand these sort of ancient insights for living a life with less conflict and, more real joy.
Okay, let's jump right in. The speech starts really powerfully. In the presence of God, death's dance calms. That's quite an image.
It is.
What does he actually mean by this presence? Is it like an external God?
No, not really. Osho clarifies pretty quickly that inviting God in isn't about some deity out there. It's more about an internal shift.
An internal shift.
Yeah, a state where, as he puts it, death begins to exit. It leads to experiencing amrita, which is like immortality, hearing eternal sounds, seeing things in a whole new way.
Mm-hmm. A new dimension of vision.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's about changing your perception, fundamentally.
And then he gets into this idea that we mistake our body for our real self, making us feel mortal.
Right. He says we're not just the earthen lamp, the physical bit.
We're the conscious flame inside, the Chinmaya Jyoti.
Exactly. And the analogy he uses is powerful.
Yeah.
The body's a temple, sure, but the real deal, the deity, is within. Without that inner awareness, the temple is just, well, he says garbage.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how do we connect with that flame? He mentions witness consciousness, Sakshi Baba.
Yes, that's key. That shift in inner vision is what lets you experience this immortality. It's about remembering, I am soul, I am supreme, a divine light burns within.
Okay.
And that breaks the identification with just the physical body, its origins. It reveals that, like Osho says, you are who you always were,
Right.
remembering your true nature, which is boundless.
So if that's our true self, this conscious flame, how do we actually get closer to it? He brings up satsang next. Association with truth or enlightened people. But how does just being near someone, maybe not even talking, cause such a big shift? What's the mechanism there? It sounds a bit poetic.
Well, he explains it in a very interesting way. The enlightened person does nothing to you directly. It's their presence, their vibrations.
Vibrations.
Think about it like this. You're near someone dancing, maybe your feet start tapping, or someone laughs genuinely, and you feel laughter bubble up too.
Yeah, okay, I get that.
What's alive in them kind of vibrates into you. Because as he says, we are not separate, our threads are interwoven. There's a deeper connection and resonance.
That makes intuitive sense. But then he contrasts associating with smaller people versus greater ones. That camel analogy is striking.
Ah, yes, the camel near the Himalayas.
It feels pain seeing the huge mountains, realizes it's small, and prefers the desert where it feels like everything. What's the psychology there?
It points to something pretty basic in us, what he calls a basic mental process. We often hang around smaller individuals, people we feel superior to, because it boosts our ego, makes us feel important. But
Yeah.
seeking the greater, which is what real satsang is about, goes against the mind's process. It actually leads to the ego dissolving, shrinking. It's an upward journey, and it takes humility.
So satsang isn't just a social club.
Not at all. He actually calls satsang a unique word. Says no other language really captures it because the concept wasn't explored so deeply elsewhere.
Really?
It means truly being with someone who has found the truth, letting your guard down, opening your heart, allowing their waves to enter you. That's how this experience of immortality starts.
He uses that story about Vaishali, right? The
Yeah.
city with the epidemic and drought.
Yes, a great illustration. They call for Buddha Bhagavan in their misery.
And he comes and things get better. Death's vision was removed. The sickness goes. Even the trees get leaves again.
Right. But then the interesting part, when they became happy, they didn't want to stop him from leaving. They just let him go.
Why? They got what they wanted, I guess.
Exactly. It shows how people often use God or use spiritual presence for small, immediate fixes, like killing an ant with a sword, Osho says. They wanted relief from suffering, not necessarily deep transformation, so they missed the chance for great happiness. Once the immediate problem was solved, poof, they moved on.
That leads into a pretty bold statement he makes. He calls himself a partisan of science.
He does.
Says for things like disease, poverty, mental issues, science can remove them. So religion is not needed for that stuff. That's quite a claim.
It's a very sharp distinction he draws. For Osho, religion is needed when science has completed its work.
Meaning?
Meaning when you're, completely happy in the worldly sense, all your basic needs met, health good, everything sorted. But then you realize you need something more. You need great happiness, mazuk.
So he wouldn't entertain people coming with everyday problems.
Apparently not.
Yeah.
He mentions dismissing people asking for help with jobs, sick relatives, marriages,
Hmm.
saying basically, you can manage these things yourselves. For him, those are small uses of this potential spiritual connection, this God's presence, when there's a much bigger, vast journey available.
Okay, that definitely reframes things. Now, shifting a bit, he talks about Buddha's approach being scientific, emphasizing cause and effect, karma.
Yes, the principle of cause and effect, where nothing is uncaused.
But he presents karma differently, maybe? Not just action-reaction for one person?
Right. It's not atomic, he says. No act is complete in itself. It's all interconnected like threads in a huge web stretching back and forward in time. Every action ripples outwards.
And he gives Buddha's past life as Shank the Brahmin as an example.
A fascinating one. Shak apparently worshipped every awakened being's chaitya, their shrine or memorial.
Without picking sides, Jain, Hindu, whatever.
Exactly. Own, stranger, Shraman, Brahmin, didn't matter. He put flowers on all the village temples with this impartial feeling.
And that small act.
That seemingly small, tiny sacrifice.
Mm.
It
Mm,
terrifies.
mm, mm.
Though the Totoleas says is sacrificing his ego, his sectarianism. That was the seed for his own enlightenment later, his ability to bring Amrita, that immortality, to others.
That ties into his really strong critique of religious division, then.
Absolutely. He mentions scriptures, Jain and Hindu, telling people it's better to be trampled by an elephant than enter an opposing temple for safety.
That's extreme.
And Osho says that's not a sign of being religious. That's just politics, being bound by group, sect, notion, principle.
So what is being religious in this view?
Seeing God's lamp wherever a lamp is lit. Understanding that extinguished lamps might look different, but all ignited lamps are one light. Anyone who truly sees the light will see the same light residing in all lit lamps. That's the key.
This impartial vision, apeta drishti.
Yes, he says that's the profound seed for real spiritual growth. Because what you see, you become. Your vision one day becomes the creation of your life. Our perception literally shapes our reality.
Okay, so pulling these threads together now, he seems to boil it down to two core principles for achieving this great happiness, this mahasukh.
Right.
What's the first one?
The first is crucial. Sacrifice the small for the great. He says, if greater happiness can be gained by sacrificing a little pleasure, a wise person sacrifices the little pleasure for the sake of the greater happiness. It's about priorities.
Like the grain example.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Eating the handful of grain now gives a tiny pleasure. Planting it gives you food for a year, much greater happiness later.
Right.
The wise person is always looking to leave the small, the insignificant, to gain the vast. Shank, Buddha's past self, might have looked mad to people for worshiping everywhere.
Yeah, it probably seemed weird.
But it was a small sacrifice, maybe some social approval with a vast result, like a tiny drop at Gamuk becoming the huge Ganges River. It's about long-term vision.
That handful of grain idea really hits home. You see those choices everywhere, don't you? Scrolling versus creating, spending versus saving.
Absolutely. It's a constant balancing act.
Okay, so that's the first principle. Sacrifice the small for the great. What's the second one?
The second is just as profound. Do not seek happiness that depends on another's sorrow.
Don't build your happiness on someone else's pain.
Precisely. He warns, the person who seeks happiness for themselves by causing sorrow to others is caught in a cycle of enmity and can never be free from it.
Sounds like karma again.
It is. He explicitly says, the sorrows you inflict on others will return, and also joys you give will also return, but amplified 1,000-fold. It's a law of return.
He tells that story about the station master, too.
Yes. Plotting to have a rich man robbed and killed by his porter.
But the plan goes wrong.
Terribly wrong. By mistake, the porter kills the station master instead. As Osho puts it, the one who dug a pit for others fell into it himself. A very direct illustration.
So how do you find happiness without causing sorrow? He contrasts wealth and meditation.
Right. He suggests accumulating wealth often involves competition, maybe even snatching others' wealth. It's inherently comparative, often zero-sum. Meditation, dhyan, though, that does not take from anyone. It just increases your own attention, your own inner state. It's non-competitive.
And the implication
is that as you genuinely become more joyful through something like meditation, something internal, you will effortlessly start giving joy to others. It overflows naturally.
So it's about finding private happiness.
Yes.